So students, once again we'll take up the final solution by Manik Bandyopadhyay and we'll continue from where we had left off. So the final solution, as I'm sure by now you have already read the story. So the story makes very subtle remarks on middle class hypocrisies and also middle class inconsistencies. Now I'll obviously explain what this middle class hypocrisy refers to, but if you have read the story, you have probably guessed that this is a term which is being applied to Promotho's character. So the story is remarkable for the articulation of female subjectivity, and also for rejecting male protection or desecration upon women's body, right? I think this is pretty obvious, doesn't require much explanation, but I will just give you an overview of how this works out. Articulation of female subjectivity, because and also the rejection of male protection. So as you will see that one of the tropes, one trope means something that recurs in literature, right? So one of the tropes in literature is the concept of damsel in distress, right? So you must already be familiar, or you must have heard this term before, damsel in distress, that the female in any story is in distress and then there has to be a male savior. So that is usually the trope in much of literature, whichever literature you take, English, French, whatever, Bengali, right? But obviously there are authors who have developed more complex narratives, and this is one of the stories, the final solution, where Manik Bandyopadhyay has actually articulated to a remarkable degree on the issue of female subjectivity. And he has done this how? He has allowed his character, his female lead, Mallika, to reject male protection which is offered to her by Pramotha. Now you might obviously question that, sir, how she was pushed towards prostitution, how is this protection? Well, do not think of protection in the sense of saving someone from something, right? Here, in the context of this story, protection would be a little more complex, because as you know that Mallika has a son, right? And if you have read the story, you must have encountered those paragraphs where she says that she will do anything to save her son, right? She cares much less for herself, and also very little for her husband, but her concern is her son's well-being, right? And since that is her concern, she will accept anything, any job, whatever she has to do to ensure that her son is fed. And in that sense, what Pramotho offers is, in that sense, a protection to her. But do not take the word protection too literally. It's in a very critical sense. You will have to comprehend this term here. So as a result of this female subjectivity, as a result of rejecting male protection, she, in the end, Mallika, does become aggressive, and her aggression is a way of breaking out of the trap that Pramotho had laid for her, right? But at the beginning of the story, actually towards the middle of the story, she does accept being thrown into prostitution to feed her little son, right? At the expense of her self-respect and integrity. So keep that in mind. She makes a choice, right? So she was pushed towards that direction, but she does take the decision herself. More importantly, and the height of female subjectivity is established here when she finally breaks off from that trap, and she kind of takes revenge on Pramotho, right? But obviously that's a bit more complex. We'll talk about it when we reach that point of the plot. So we know that Mallika's husband is a diminutive figure, right? And he turns out to be an abject failure, right? Rather, in comparison to Mallika, he turns out to be a feminization, as it were, right? Try and understand what I'm saying here. her husband turns out to be the female in the relationship in the traditional understanding of male and female. um, so we find her husband completely incapacitated and unable to sustain her family. So Mallika's decision to accept prostitution as a means to feed her little son comes as a last resort, because remember, she had asked Pramatho whether there are jobs available for men which her husband could do. And the answer to that was, of course, that there aren't any jobs left for men, but there are a few jobs for women, which is when she finally accepts that proposal with full knowledge of what she was being pushed into. And how do we know she had full knowledge? Because if you remember, soon after Pramatho leaves, there are these college students who come, who had been, observing her and Pramatho for some time. And these are student activists who come to her and who tell her that Pramatha's intentions are not in the right place. And she clearly, at that point, if you read the conversation, it's very evident that she's aware of what she's being thrown into. She is very well aware of what she has accepted, but she has done it at the expense of her own body, at the expense of her own dignity and self-respect. But all of this was done as a last resort to be able to feed her son and family when all doors to finding suitable employment were closed, and she found her family standing on the verge of death owing to starvation. So Mallika opting for prostitution as a way to salvage her family from sinking and perishing, right? And perishing, it accentuates her maternal instincts in defiance of her constant humiliation by Pramatho, right? So, like I said, her choice, right, of um, accepting that role in prostitution actually accentuates her maternal instincts, because she has done it predominantly to ensure that her son is fed, that her son stays alive, right? So she's very much a figure of courage, and as she finally thwarts Pramatho's plan to exploit her and other women in their state of helplessness, and she daringly impedes Pramatho's advances towards her by strangling him to death. Right, that is a moment of power. She takes revenge, but more importantly, revenge is one way of looking at it. The more nuanced way of looking at it would be to say that she successfully thwarts Pramatho's plan. Now we do not know what happens after the point where the story ends, right? After she kills Pramatho and she reaches her family, what happens after that we don't know. Whether she's arrested, we have no idea, right? And that is left to our speculation. But we will also have to remain within the safe limits of speculation, right? Keep that in mind. So speculation has safe limits, and do not speculate uh, to a point where you do not have any evidence from the story, right? So remember that there are two ways, at least two ways, of looking at the fact that Mallika kills Pramatho. One is revenge, which is a very simplistic way of looking at this event, but it is true. Now, if you say that she took revenge, you would not be wrong. However, more importantly, the better way of looking at it is that she thwarts Pramatho's plan to exploit her, right? So revenge is a very, if you see it as revenge, you are probably looking at it from the point of view of tragedy. Because remember, if you take the example of tragedy, where very often there is an act of revenge, but at the end of that act of revenge, there is also much suffering. There is death, right? And the protagonist often dies. That is within the trope of tragedy. And here the story ends before that happens, so we do not know what happens in the end. So we have to take a nuanced standpoint from where it seems that she has succeeded seemingly in thwarting Pramatho's plan to exploit her. So it is her revenge, and her final revenge brings a kind of apt closure to the tale of misfortunes heaped upon innocent, gullible female victims by spiteful, stony-hearted, capitalistic racketeers, right? So you remember from the previous class I mentioned um, the aspect of capitalism and how Manik Bandyopadhyay plants it into his story here. Of course, I'm going to repeat that, and of course, it's significant because Pramotho's character is is a very specific kind of capitalist, right? Capitalism's the basic idea or the core idea of capitalism is to make profit, right? And then that profit gets invested again. That's the basic idea. Now that has a long history in economics, in Catholicism. It actually comes from Calvinism. That the idea of what is today called capitalism is rooted in something called Calvinism, which was something that John Calvin had come up with. And the idea of that was you have to work, and you have to work really hard, and after working hard, whenever you make profit, that profit you will not keep for yourself, but you will invest it again and work harder. Okay, so and at the end of working hard was a reward, that there was a seat occupied for you in heaven. So that was John Calvin's argument, and we are not going to get into that. However, the reason I bring this up is that Pramotho's kind of capitalism seeks profit at the expense of other people, right? And it seeks profit no matter what, which was not the original plan by John Calvin. All right, so here you see people are in distress, people like Mallika, of course, and Mallika is a surrogate for thousands, hundreds of thousands of other women who had to cross the border, sometimes without their families. And if you watch some of the films of Hrithik Ghatak and even Satyajit Ray, you are going to get a glimpse of what happened at that time, right? These people are obviously some of the best film directors ever, not only in India but in the world, and what they have captured is beyond what film can capture today, perhaps. So yes, if you are trying to understand, if you want a visual representation of what happens in the final solution, I'm not aware whether there is a film on the final solution. If any of you come across, let me know. I'm not aware, but there are films which will tell you, or which have represented what happened after partition, when families crossed over from one side of the border to the other, right? So the films of Hrithik Ghatak is a good place to start. Mekhe Taka Tara is one good example. Then obviously you have some films by Satyajit Ray. There are ones by Tapon Sinha. So yes, go ahead, and you, I'm sure those of you who are not well versed in Bengali, you can also watch these films, because they will be available with English subtitles, right? So definitely watch these movies. All right. So Mallika's courage in the face of adversities wins the heart of readers, right? And that is something we do not have to doubt. It's pretty obvious. I'm sure anyone who has read the story agrees that Mallika is the protagonist of the story, and her courage wins the hearts of readers. And she stays undaunted by the final catastrophe and reaches the final solution through her strong will and presence of mind. Now this brings a question. The question is, so in this entire story, what was the final solution, right? So I'm not going to give you a straightforward answer here. Rather, I would have you speculate. There is enough evidence in the story to answer this question. So try and think about it. Maybe write about it. What is the final solution, and is it at all a solution? Think about it, and maybe we'll discuss this later. But for now, I'm leaving it up to you to speculate. But remember, this is a very important question, right? What is the final solution in the story? The final solution, and whether this alleged solution is even a solution at all. So, in the opinion of another scholar called Shukanna Chaudhary, Mallika's revolutionary stance symbolizes an anti-hegemonic bodyscape. If you remember hegemony, I mentioned the term while I was teaching you Gramsci, and anti-hegemony is obviously the opposite of hegemony. So hegemony, basically the basic idea that Gramsci came up with when he talked about hegemony is that whenever people are told that they have a choice but they are actually not given that choice, that may be called hegemony, right? Now I give you a very not very streamlined definition, and not very specific definition, something I just made up, but hegemony is something like that, right? You are in the illusion of having a choice, but in reality you do not have a choice, and that is how your the social structure around you is, always giving you the illusion that you can go and choose. You buy something and you think it was your choice, but it was actually not your choice, and Gramsci explains that very well. So if you are not aware of this idea, and if you want a class on this, let me know, but I am assuming you have some idea because I spoke about it when I taught you Gramsci. So according to Shukanna Choudhury, Mallika's revolutionary stance symbolizes an anti-hegemonic bodyscape to kind of re-territorialize her identity, right? So what is re-territorialize? Re-territorialize basically amounts to getting back territory once it has been lost. So when you bring Mallika in, if you take the example of Mallika, she has lost not only her homeland, right? She has had to leave wherever she used to live before, and she has had to come to another side of the border, and that way she has lost the territory where she lived in. But because of the fact that she has been pushed into prostitution and she has had to accept it, she has also been deterritorialized from her body, right? Because she is being pushed to do something which causes her to lose her dignity, if you understand. And finally, by the act which may be called the final solution, that is killing Pramotha in this story, Shukanna Choudhury argues that she kind of re-territorializes her identity. That's a tough word to say perhaps, but I hope you have understood it. So in her retributive action lies her courage to question the dominant forces of society, right? And if you note the last passages of the story, Mallika burst out in rage when she said that I found an excellent way out. That gangster, he thought he had got me to carry on his infamous goings on. What did he take me for? Am I physically weak because I am a woman? So this is a question with which the story kind of ends, right? So, well, this is one of the key questions of the story. Am I physically weak because I'm a woman? And that gangster thought that he could get me to carry on his infamous goings on, right? So remember, this is kind of the locus of the story. Everything else in the story, all the events in the story, except the fact of the partition, other than the partition, all the events that happen in the story, are rooted in the fact that a man thinks that a woman can be thrown into prostitution without any retribution, without being challenged, right? Because Pramotho, not even in his worst nightmares, imagined that one day one of these women whom he has been pushing into prostitution and earning money from doing so, that one of these women would one day take revenge and he would lose his life in one of their hands. He did not imagine that, but that happened. So Mallika has a strong sense of self, and she bravely subverts the gender-centric norms by deciding to earn for her family. This is important. In her case, that is Mallika's case, mothering results in slow forgetting of the self. Yet, she never gives up even when she is overwhelmed by anxiety and anguish. And in the end, she does gain full control over the inner struggle, and also the outer struggle. The outer struggle is obviously the struggle that she was facing with characters such as Pramatho and Pramatho and his parts, right? But the inner struggle was her decision as to whether she should actually accept the role as a prostitute, right? So in the end, she was able to overcome both, right? So I'm going to stop here. There are a few more things that I want to talk about from this text, and I'll pick those up in the next class. But for today's class, I'm leaving you with that question: what is the final solution in this story, and is it even a solution? Right? Think about it. Also, there's one text that I want you to, if you're not able to read it, that's all right. But one text I want you to know about is another play. Is a play by George Bernard Shaw. I had forgotten his name for a moment there. But so George Bernard Shaw has this play called Mrs. Warden's Profession, right? And read that play. If you can't read the play, at least read the summary, know what happens in that story, and then use the perspective that you learned from there, perspective that you picked up from reading the summary or the play, Mrs. Warden's Profession, and then apply it here, right? And I must warn you, these two are very different. They do not say the same thing. In fact, they say quite contrary things, but because without contraries there is no progression, as William Blake said. So bring that perspective here and see what that results in. It will help you to think more critically. So I will end this class here.